Man, movies today are getting way too political. Let's have an animated discussion. Battleship Potemkin is a dramatic reenactment of a mutiny that took place in 1905 on the Battleship Potemkin, following the defeat of Russia during the Russo-Japanese War. This movie stars Alexander Antonov, Vladimir Barksley, Grigory Alexandrov, and was written by Nina Agadsanova, Grigory Alexandrov, and Nikolai Asiv, and was directed by Sergi Eisenstein. Man, I try so hard to say those names correctly. Fingers crossed I got them right. We'll see. I love a silent film. I love a silent film. It is so interesting because, like, if you saw my Wall-E movie review, you would understand why this is a little bit of a surprise, because that's one of the reasons I hated Wall-E as a kid. But one of my top 5 movies is The Passion of Joan, which we'll get to cover later in this series, and I'm so excited about. I am a sucker for a silent film because it shows how much broader communication can be beyond just words. It's so cool. Silent films are really cool to me. Watching this movie reminded me of why I love silent films. The direct dialogue, intense acting, and emotions. I also really love watching how directors convey things that are easier to explain in films where people talk. You don't realize how hard it can be to convey something in a film without words until you try to do it yourself. And it's like, explain water to me, but don't use words. How do you do that? So the direct dialogue is fascinating to me because there's only so much you can put on, I forget what they're called, but like where you see what their lines were. There's only so much that can be put there, so you have to be very direct in what you want to say and get to the point quickly. Too much, you will lose your audience because they didn't come to read, they came to live and experience and watch other people live. This movie is broken up into 5 parts, and I kind of want to talk about it in each part. I feel like that's the best way to really grasp everything this movie is saying. Ooh, I'm really excited. Okay, part 1, Men and Worms. Such a dramatic opening. Stop flirting with me. It's kind of cute. I don't know. Anyways, this part of the movie is the setup. The first thing we talk about are the sailors wanting to join the revolution. After the loss of the Russo-Japanese War, morale was extremely low within the Russian Navy. The movie doesn't talk about this too much, but the Potemkin wasn't the only ship brimming with thoughts of revolution. I think it wasn't overly stated because this movie only came out 20 came out 20 minutes after the revolution, 20 years after the battle had taken place. So for all intents and purposes, this movie was reacting a current event when it first came out. It was very fresh on everyone's mind. They didn't need to know the context of everything because most of them had lived that context. After that, we see a quick scene to establish the relationship between the officers and the sailors. You know I love a good establishment scene. You can see the sailors are sleeping and one of the officers comes down to yell at them and even makes one of the sailors cry. That alone is all we needed to see to know how tenuous the relationship between the two factions are in the movie. First of all, making a soldier cry. I just feel like that is a very intense thing. Maybe it's because of where I live, but men are not allowed to cry. This is something I'm not a big fan of, but men aren't allowed to show their emotions, and especially someone who is in a position of a warrior. The thought of them crying. So that scene really hit me hard. I was like, you made him cry. I was like, you are a terrible, terrible leader. Like, you guys just lost the war. You're already making your soldiers cry. I immediately hated the officers. Like, immediately. I was like, oh, they gotta go. Like, it was just so quick for me. After this, so after they made someone cry, we find out that all the meat the men are supposed to eat has been completely covered in maggots. And you see a photo, they show the maggots, and the doctor inspects it, and we see that he says, it's not worms, it's maggots, perfectly safe to eat. Nani? Just, huh? The food is crawling with like completely covered with maggots. Even then, even if maggots are good to eat, that meat is not good to eat because that it shows that meat is spoiling. You know how like shrimp are bottom feeders, and so people are like, you can have shrimp, but you probably shouldn't because you're just eating garbage, so you're eating what eats garbage. I feel like that's the same with maggots. Like, maggots only eat like what's spoiling. So Like, I get survival techniques and tactics, but still, I was just like, you made him cry and you're making him eat rotten meat? Evil! So naturally, the soldiers decided they will not eat the soup made of the rotting meat. Shocking. Who could have predicted this? Wow, they have standards? They've been fighting for their country this whole time, but they're not going to eat the rotten meat? Aren't they patriotic? If you can't tell, I have a few thoughts about all of this. So much is established in the first part of this movie. We see a desire for revolution, sailors being beaten down and underappreciated and not being fed properly. Honestly, being gaslit for not wanting to eat the meat. There is no way that meat was safe to eat. I can't see a world where that meat was safe to eat. I cannot. Also, yeah, unfortunately, I grew up kind of poor, so I would eat a lot of moldy food because I was like, I could tell when it wouldn't taste good, but it wasn't going to kill me. You know, that meat, no. One thing that really stuck out to me in the first part of this movie and stayed with me for the rest was how amazing the score was. It seemed to fit the emotions perfectly. One thing I kind of struggle with in silent films, especially Charlie Chaplin's work, is that I don't always feel like the emotion that's trying to be portrayed connects to the score. And that's been very interesting. That's something that I've been trying to learn more about. I've been wondering if maybe there is a psychology or music theory that I'm not getting, or if music theory has shifted and evolved since silent films. Because sometimes the music did not match the tension, but this movie did such a good job, in my opinion, of really matching each emotion. I was like, whoa, okay, that's intense, and I feel the tension. I just thought it was really cool. I will say though that when I researched the history of this movie, there were a few times the score was changed throughout history, so I can't confirm or deny whether the score I heard for this movie was actually the original, but it didn't give modern day vibes, and I don't know at what point the scores were changed and what movie I saw, which version of the movie I saw. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt here. Part 2. Drama in the harbor. After the soldiers decided not to eat the soup, the officers, trying to intimidate the soldiers, threatened to hang everyone who didn't eat the soup. Because that's smart. Things completely spiral, and the officer is about to kill them for deciding not to eat. This leads to a mutiny. Vakulunchuk was was the first person to say anything about fighting against the officers at this moment, and the rebellion began. Vakulunchuk ends up getting shot by First Officer Gilavosky, unfortunately, and dies. But the first officer does not make it out alive. Everyone's super mad he kills him. So they all kind of express their discontent. There's so much to unpack here in part 2, and I loved how they would cut to certain shots, and there seemed to be such a conversation about expressing what each thing was supposed to represent in the movie. Jumping from shot to shot really emphasized certain things. My favorite use of this was when the priest on board was hitting his religious relic against his hand, and then it would cut to the officer fiddling with his sword, showcasing the thought of both of them being a form of weaponry. I loved that, because the priest was trying to tell everyone, you need to eat, it is holy to eat, and all this stuff, and he's using that as an example of, it's a weapon. He's using that as a weapon against these people trying to fight for what they deserve, which is just good food. It's just good food. But he's saying, no, you should listen to me, and he's weaponizing his priesthood. The priest was talking the whole time about how to be holy, they needed to eat the rotten meat. And then when he falls down the stairs, the cross hits the floor like an axe. I couldn't handle that. It was so amazing. It was almost like in using religion as a weapon, he fell by that weapon. And I was just like, oh, that was such good imagery. It was such good editing. The cuts were amazing. This section was wild to me because it further emphasized how much revolution is really just people wanting to live fairly. And that's so frustrating. They wanted edible food and not have their lives threatened for asking for it. Now, looking into the history of this mutiny, there are obviously a lot more issues at hand, but the straw that broke the camel's back was, hey, feed us actual food. Working on political movies has made me so angry recently, and I just gotta calm down. It was also crazy to me how the two people who were supposed to help keep these sailors alive and in good spirits were the ones hurting them the most. The doctor and the priest. The priest is like, no, to be holy is to eat rotten meat, and the doctor is like, you won't die, just eat the meat. And I'm just like, it's giving American pharmaceuticals, you know? Part 3. A dead man calls for justice. I need a Part 3. A dead man calls for justice. That was better. After Vakulinchuk's death, the soldiers take his body to the shores of Odessa and rest his body in a public area with a sign that says slain for wanting soup. This leads to thousands of people coming to pay their respects and become really angry about what life has become for everyone. Okay, guys, just hear me out, okay? There are 2 huge things in part 3, for me at least. One is just the sheer mass of extras they have here. They got so many people for this. They got so many people. They didn't have CGI. I don't know how they got that many extras. Also, the cut from face to face to face to face. I loved seeing how their emotions were so prominently on display. And it showed so many different types of sadness and grief and emotion. Like, you could see different people feel sad in different ways, feel anger in different ways. Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy to me. You can also see how this one guy thinks he can just say whatever he wants and like completely just starts to spout nonsense, and then you see the ramifications of that, and everyone else is like so like shocked by what he says, and they just get him. And then he realizes, I messed up. And it's so interesting to see that, because I don't know if you guys have been like following what's been going on in America right now, but there have been a lot of students who have been protesting, and every time a student protests, and it's usually an adult, which is crazy, but one adult comes and tries to fight and say like, yeah, I support ICE, or yeah, this, or yeah, this. And then the students just jump them. I've seen like 2 or 3 videos of this happening. First of all, why are adults trying to pick fights with children? Second of all, you're not revolutionary. You're not new. This has been happening since 1905, since 1925 when this movie came out. Like, why do people try to go alone to fight hordes? It's not cool. You're not being brave. And why are you trying to fight people that much younger than you? I just feel like there's an important lesson here that some people should be watching before they decide to go fight some picket lines alone. Part 4. The Odessa Staircase. Okay, here we go. This is the climax. This is the crux. This is it. This scene is it. The mutiny brought such a sense of power to people. They then brought supplies to the sailors on Potemkin. Everything seemed to be going okay until the Fire Nation attacked, but also the Russian army. They started shooting without prejudice, and the way that this scene is shot, oof, my gosh, there is just an insanity to the montage here. Like, you can feel the tension, the chaos, again, the music, and then we see this moment. Guys, this moment was definitely inspiration for this moment. There's no way it wasn't. You can't tell me it wasn't. Then Potemkin shooting at the opera house. These moments are insane. Also, the lions. Guys, there is so much here. There's so much inspiration here. In researching the history of this moment, the Tsar at the time was saying that they needed to nip this in the bud so that there wouldn't be more lives lost. That was what he was quoted to say when he dispatched the army. I don't know I don't know how that translated to his army firing at will at everybody. If you're trying to stop a rebellion so that you minimize the damages, but you just shoot at everybody, like, okay, yeah, people aren't going to fight later, but you're also already killing so many people. There has to be some way in between. Somewhere in between. And if you think back about the Battle of Algiers and the General? I'm so sorry, I don't remember. But Mateo, for the French side, he was very methodical in how he fought back because he really worked hard to minimize the damage. There is no minimization of damage on these staircases. This is a terrible, terrible massacre. And like, you see the scene where all these people are trampling this child. You see the scene where the stroller is going down the stairs and this lady gets shot in the glass, like in the glasses, in the eye. There are these people who are not armed. They're not armed. They literally just tried to give food to Potemkin. And the quote from the Tsar at the beginning of we just want to mitigate and avoid as many deaths as possible sounds noble until you see what they did to try to make that happen. And then it's like, I don't think you know what that means. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means at this point. Power can take you from a home to a funhouse, where you can look in a mirror and see things for what they are, and suddenly, once you get too much power, everything gets warped. Everything gets warped and shifted and adjusted, and you think you are the wisest person because you have the most power. And most times, power that you receive is just the luck of the draw. It's very rare people have control of how much power they get. It's how much power they receive, and then they try to hold on to it. And the more you try to hold on to it, the more you tend to lose it. And it's so frustrating to watch what power does to people. And I don't know the history of the Tsar, so I can't say whether or not he was a good leader. And frankly, I don't really care. What I saw was that people needed food and people were really tired of being taken advantage of. Power is so dangerous, guys. And I understand wanting it because you don't want other people to have control over you. But if you don't know how to control yourself, then once you have power, you're not going to know what to do when you wield it. Meeting with squadron. If you're looking for a moment of just pure tension to study, part 5 is definitely where it's at. The sailors are struggling with whether they should go help Odessa fight or if they should meet with the other squadrons. This is where learning the history of Potemkin really comes into play because you don't fully know why they're meeting with the other squadrons. You're just like, okay, sure, but what would that do? Like, if you help these people, you already know you have people here. But if you know the history, you know that there are other squadrons who were part of this rebellion as well, and there was no way to know whether or not they had succeeded in their mutinies. And so that was where the tension and the risk lied. It's so cool because you get to see a slow build, and the music here is really what builds the tension, because for the next 5 to 7 minutes minimum, you're just watching all the soldiers set the ship, get the ship ready to go meet with the squadron. So the whole time, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to go anyway. And it's like, okay, is it going to be okay? 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 And it's just like, this person is spinning a wheel, and this person is lifting a sail, and this person is doing this and that. And you're just like, okay, but what's the answer? And I think it's a very good study on building tension, because you watch them set up for so long that your tension just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And you're like, what is happening? Tell me everything. And I think it's really cool. As someone who struggles a lot with tension because I don't like feeling uncomfortable, I think they did a really good job here. Why did Potemkin make the top 100? You know what's so exciting? I feel myself turning more and more into a film enthusiast because I was so excited about all the ways that the director had the scenes cut, and then come to find out that this is literally what the movie is studied for. The way that they cut from shot to shot. Guys, I'm so in tune with other filmmakers. I know what's going on. I don't want to brag or anything, but I'm kind of got it down. I don't have it down. But it was really cool to know that the thing I loved about this movie is the thing that people studied. In my research, I found that there were 5 different forms of montages, as they were called. I needed help identifying these shots, and 100 years of cinema helped me understand it immensely in their video, 1925, how Sergi Eisenstein Used Montage to Film the Unfilmable. And if you guys really want more detail, you should really check out their video because, oh my gosh, guys, listen. I learned so much. I just learned so much. There were certain things that I caught that I mentioned in the past 5 sections, But there are other things I didn't even notice until I watched this video. And if you want to learn, you gotta check them out. They're really, really cool. They talk about the 5 types of montages that Eisenstein used to really impact certain scenes in the movie. This is based on the Kuleshov effect in montage making. The idea that you can have an actor looking at something blankly and then cut to a shot of a bowl. And then that translates to, oh, this person's hungry. Or you could cut to a shot of a coffin and you're like, oh, this person's sad. It's not the actor that's bringing forth the emotion, but the editing and the explanation of the actor's face through what we see next. Whew! Guys, this is so cool. So it's like the actor could just be like, just stare. So you're just staring, right? You're just staring like a good actor would. And then it cuts to a sandwich. You could tell that the actor is hungry and must eat the sandwich. Or the actor could be staring and it cuts to Pamela Anderson. You could tell that the actor has a crush on Pamela Anderson. And it's just so cool. I absolutely love it. There are 5 types of montages here. There's metric, rhythmic, tonal, I knew I was going to be able to say that. Intellectual, and overtonal. I got too excited. Okay, so here's a quick breakdown of all of them. Metric, cutting at a second at a time or frames, regardless of what is happening in the shot. It sets the tempo for the film. So it goes boom, 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 boom. And it helps you speed things up, slow things down. Eisenstein used this to showcase the sailor life. As you're seeing how fast they have to move, you're also seeing what they have to do. Rhythmic was cutting on action and scene to create a sense of movement. This was used in the Massacre of the Odessa Steppes. Tonal uses 2 images with a similar feel to enhance the overall message. This was used when Valenchuk dies. Overtonal is the effect of all 3. This creates an effect larger than the sum of its parts. Hitchcock used this at the end of North by Northwest when the 2 leads are kissing next to each other, and then it cuts to a train entering a tunnel to represent a good time. Again, you gotta check out the video I suggested. They really helped me check all this out. It was so cool. I never caught that in North by Northwest until I saw this video, and I was like, oh, I'm never looking at a train through a tunnel again. I see you, Thomas the Tank Engine. Intellectual montages takes 2 shots with individual meanings spliced together to mean a whole new thing that no one would have ever been able to think of. Eisenstein uses an example of this when the armed forces on the steps of Odessa juxtaposed with the woman holding her son, as well as the lion statues waking up. So when you see the lions waking up, you're like, that's so random. But when you see it in between the explosions, you're like, oh my gosh. And then when you see the soldiers walking, you're like, okay, soldiers are walking. And then when you see the mother holding her son, you're like, oh, those soldiers are evil. And it's just, guys, this is art. I love art. I have to art. I really should be a singer. All y'all hoes are lucky I decided to let y'all shine. The effects on history. This movie is actually pretty close in terms of accuracy to the actual turn of events in history. From Potemkin revolting before other ships in the squadron did, to the placing of Valenchuk's body for everyone to see, and even reaching the squadron safely. So what happened afterwards? I think we should just end here because here is happy and I like it here. But reality rarely ends with a happily ever after and a pretty little bow. So Potemkin met up with the ship St. George, and they thought they had an ally in that ship that had revolted. It wasn't until they went back to Odessa that sailors who were loyal to the Tsar, who had pretended to be part of the mutiny, staged a counter-mutiny. This caused Potemkin to leave in the dead of night defeated. As they tried to get supplies and coal, they were iced out from multiple locations, losing crewmen along the way. They finally decided to give the ship back to the Russian government in return for asylum, though they did flood the ship before abandoning it as one last hurrah. A lot of the soldiers chose to live in exile, while others decided to face justice for their crimes. Matushenko was considered a revolutionary legend and smuggled himself back into Russia to fight, but was executed 2 years later in 1907, dying for what he believed in. the Tsar wouldn't be disposed for another 10 years. Then, following the rise of communism, Soviet propagandists repackaged the Black Sea mutineers as early heroes of the revolution. I got this information from history.com because I was really like, okay, so they were able to meet with the other boat. What does that mean? I love adding this history here because it highlights two things. One, the end of the movie is not the end of Potemkin. Potemkin has a sad ending. However, like the Battle of Algiers, I'm learning that guerrilla warfare tactics are usually not the end-all be-all. They are the spark that might not catch fire until years later. The Tsar did not get disposed for another decade, but that did not matter. The movie ended where it did to showcase hope in a hopeless situation. Moments where things feel impossible and cause someone to do the impossible. That's important. I think sometimes we feel like when we go into a war that we will make change immediately, and war is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But because things happen so fast, we feel like results should happen fast. Dismantling systems takes time. It's not an easy thing to do. 2, we have another movie where the biggest name attached to the revolution is barely in the movie, based on the event that catapulted their life into freedom fighting. Vakulinchuk is showcased in this movie like Jafar in Battle of Algiers, but Matyushenko is only mentioned once in the beginning. And when you see what happens after the mutiny, Matyushenko is the celebrity. The main character of these moments rarely get the most, if any, screen time. It's fascinating to me, and I think it showcases the importance of it's not one person. Yes, Matyushenko was the celebrity for those 2 years after Potemkin, but it was so much more than just him. Yes, Jafar was huge in the movie of Battle of Algiers, but it's more than just him. And so these heroes get acknowledged and they are important, but they are not the end-all be-all. Overall, I give this movie 4 out of 5 battleships. I think the movie is so cool. I'm a huge fan of this. I do get fascinated by war tactics. This movie does a really good job of showcasing hard times, the power of the common man, the pain of the common man, and what it means to have hope in impossible situations. Okay, I'll give it a 4.5. You twisted my arm. That's me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and see you later.